welcome to the deep dive. So if you're like most of us, your phone, your laptop, it keeps you tethered to your job or school or just responsibilities pretty much 24/7.
All the time.
And we've all felt that mental fatigue that comes with it, that feeling of never really being off. Today, we're opening up a really fascinating stack of source material that gets right to the heart of this. It's about one of the most fundamental, yet, I think, often ignored parts of a fulfilling life. Intentional hobbies and actual leisure time.
Yeah, and it's really time. We stop thinking of hobbies as just optional downtime, something you do if you have a spare moment.
Exactly.
The material here really forces you to reframe them, not as luxuries, but as essential strategic tools, for maintaining your mental health, for fueling creativity, and even for accelerating how you learn new skills.
Right. So we've pulled together a really comprehensive look at the what, but also, and this is the key part, the deep why behind these personal interests.
The why is everything.
Our mission today is to go way beyond just, a list of things you can do for fun.
Right.
We want to extract the core insights, the actual mechanisms that make leisure so crucial for mental health. We want to understand how specific hobbies benefit different parts of life.
Like how one thing helps with creative thinking and another helps with social skills.
Exactly. And maybe most critically for a lot of you listening, we're going to detail how these activities can dramatically speed up learning, especially language acquisition.
Yeah, we're really aiming to give you a full picture, a kind of blueprint for how to treat leisure as an active investment. By the end of this deep dive, you should have a much clearer idea of not just how to find a hobby, but how to strategically integrate one for the biggest personal return.
Okay, so let's unpack this with the first big question that all the sources really address head on. In this hyper-connected, results-driven world we live in, why are hobbies non-negotiable? Why can't we just, power through and skip the downtime?
The answer, really, it boils down to cognitive load and the concept of delineation, making a clear line.
Okay.
The sources are absolutely unanimous on this. Our modern world, with this constant technological connection, it makes hobbies a form of, necessary preventative maintenance.
Preventative maintenance. I like that.
Without that dedicated time, and that means time spent not doing your main job or chores, your mental health and your well-being, they suffer significantly. You need that complete break to reset the executive functioning part of your brain.
So it's not just about stopping work. It's about actively doing something that pulls your mind in a totally different direction.
Precisely. If you're feeling exhausted or burned out and just less effective everywhere in your life, it's often because that boundary between your professional and personal life is just dissolved.
That's all blurred together.
It's all blurred. And hobbies, they provide that necessary dedicated outlet for stress relief and, importantly, for personal growth that you direct yourself. They create something tangible and positive to look forward to after a long day, and that helps draw those crucial boundaries that our tech is always trying to erase.
That brings us right to the core of the work-life balance argument, which is really an argument about human sustainability, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if we look at the sources on stress and mental health, what's the immediate, the most tangible benefit of having a hobby?
The most immediate benefit is something called the flow state.
Right, I've heard of this.
It's a psychological concept where you're just completely immersed in what you're doing. You feel this energized focus, you're fully involved, and you're actually enjoying the process itself.
Not just the outcome.
Not just the outcome. And hobbies are perfect for getting into that state because they offer a clear challenge that kind of matches your skill level, and they give you immediate feedback. When you're totally focused on, say, knitting a complex pattern or playing a difficult piece of music, your mind it doesn't have the bandwidth to worry about work stress.
It can't do both at once.
It can't. That complete mental absorption is what's so restorative.
That reframes it so well. It's not time off from thinking. It's time dedicated to intense, focused thinking on something you chose.
Yes.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me. The link between that stress relief and creativity. The sources all highlight that hobbies are amazing at fostering creativity and helping us tap into our imagination.
Well, when your mind is relieved of all that high-stakes pressure from your job, the daily grind of analytical problem solving, it's just free. It's free to explore new pathways.
To wander a bit.
Exactly. And that expressive outlet is fundamental to our personal growth. I mean, think about the difference between writing a detailed business report versus, say, writing a short story.
Completely different headspaces.
Worlds apart. One is constrained by rules and objectives, the other is open-ended. It lets you create new patterns, new associations, and that's where lateral thinking comes from.
And I really appreciate that the sources define creativity so broadly. It's not just about being a painter or a musician.
Oh, not at all.
It could be the creative problem solving you need to build a computer, or the creative design in planning out a hiking route.
Absolutely. It's all about active engagement and creating something new no matter what the medium is. That deep satisfaction you get from making something, whether it's a piece of code, a meal for your family, or a digital painting, it's restorative. It hits the reward centers in your brain.
A tangible accomplishment.
Yes, a tangible accomplishment that counters the often abstract nature of so much modern work. The Forces even used a really simple example: watercolor painting. Just the act of watching the colors blend on the paper is meditative, but it's still engaging a totally different part of your brain than, say, answering emails.
Okay, I have to challenge that a little bit, though. If creativity and expression are the goals, why isn't scrolling through social media restorative? I mean, technically that's consumption. You're having an emotional response.
That is a crucial distinction, and the sources are very clear on this. They differentiate between passive consumption and active engagement.
Ah.
Scrolling social media is often linked to more cognitive load, more comparison anxiety. A hobby, on the other hand, involves intentional, goal-directed creation or skill improvement. That feedback loop is key. When you're working with your hands, knitting, soldering, painting, that physical feedback is incredibly grounding. It reduces the abstract pressure of digital life.
Whereas passive consumption,
It just keeps you hooked, but it never really satisfies you.
that's a powerful point about intentionality. Okay, moving on to the social side of things. The material points out the huge importance of hobbies for building what it calls social capital.
Right. Which makes sense because so many hobbies are naturally community-based.
For sure.
Hobbies are one of the best ways to build what sociologists call weak ties.
Those are the relationships outside your immediate circle.
Exactly. Your broader support network beyond close family or colleagues. Joining a sports team, a book club, an art class. It puts you in a room with like-minded people who share a genuine interest with you. This is so critical for our well-being, especially if you've just moved to a new city or you're going through a big life change.
And even beyond joining a formal group, the sources also note that just talking about your hobbies is a fantastic icebreaker, even in like a professional networking setting.
Oh, it's a huge practical benefit.
Yeah.
Because your hobbies show your depth as a person.
Hmm.
They give a little window into what motivates you outside of your job description.
Right.
If you mention you're a passionate long-distance cyclist or that you volunteer restoring old planes, you instantly communicate something about your discipline, your patience, your commitment. It just shifts the conversation from generic professional talk to a real human connection. And that helps you build deeper, more authentic bonds.
All right, let's go a bit deeper now and look at the actual spectrum of hobbies and the unique benefits they each offer. Let's start with creative hobbies, which, as we touched on, are so valued because they give you tangible, satisfying results.
Creative expression is such a vital counterweight to the routine of daily life. Take painting and drawing. I mean, they're popular everywhere because they're so accessible and pretty low stakes.
You just need paper and a pencil to start.
Exactly. The beauty of it is that the only limits are the ones you set for yourself. We mentioned watercolor before. That meditative quality comes from focusing just on how the pigment and the water interact. It's a very low-stakes form of control.
And that can be profoundly calming.
It can. It lets the part of your brain that's always planning and making decisions, the frontal cortex, it lets it just take a break.
That focus on the process, not on creating a perfect masterpiece, that seems to be the key.
It is.
Beyond painting, photography gets mentioned as being incredibly adaptable.
Photography is a fantastic example of a modern, accessible, creative hobby. It literally forces you to see the world differently, to notice light, composition, texture.
Things you'd normally just walk past.
Right. And it's so versatile. You can do landscapes, portraits, street photography, wildlife. And the sources point out how high-quality smartphone cameras have just removed the barrier to entry. It's a perfect hobby to combine with other things like travel or hiking. It enhances the experience and the memory.
Let's talk about the more hands-on stuff, crafting and music. These seem to have a steeper learning curve, but maybe offer different rewards.
Well, these hands-on hobbies are having a massive resurgence, and I think it's precisely because so many of us have jobs with no tangible output.
Right, our work lives in the cloud.
Exactly. So we're talking about things like knitting, crocheting, woodworking, pottery. The sources really emphasize this deep, almost primal satisfaction of creating something beautiful or useful with your own hands.
Like a functional bowl or a sweater.
Yes. A functional wooden bowl or a custom-fit garment. That feeling of accomplishment is such a powerful antidote to feeling like all your effort is just digital and temporary. The effort you put in directly leads to a permanent physical thing.
I'd imagine the repetition in something like knitting or sewing also adds to that meditative quality we were talking about.
Absolutely. The repetitive rhythmic action, the clicking of the needles, the hum of a sewing machine, it creates a cognitive rhythm that can push out those anxious, intrusive thoughts.
And music.
Music is, well, the sources call it a universal language, and rightly so. It offers a unique, lifelong challenge. Whether you're learning guitar, singing in a choir, or making digital beats, music engages both your analytical skills, like rhythm and structure, and your deep emotional expression. It's so rewarding because true mastery is always just a little bit out of reach. There's always more to learn.
It ensures endless joy and continuous challenge.
Exactly.
Okay, let's make that smooth transition we talked about. Shifting from creative expression to active engagement, the physical and outdoor hobbies that give you that double boost for physical and mental health.
Right. Physical activity, when it's a hobby and not just a chore you have to do, is incredibly powerful for mental health. Starting with sports, you've got the whole spectrum. Team sports like soccer or basketball, they teach collaboration, communication, real-time strategy.
And then the individual pursuits.
Individual ones, running, swimming, tennis, they're all about discipline, personal goal setting, and mental toughness.
The sources had that really powerful story about running half marathons. It wasn't just about fitness, was it?
No, not at all. It was about a mental declaration of freedom. The runner described the feeling of just putting on their shoes and going as incredibly liberating.
I get that.
That act of physical exertion provides a mental escape. It forces your attention onto your immediate surroundings, your breath, your body. It just interrupts that loop of anxiety.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you get the endorphin release afterward, which is a natural mood boost.
For those who might not be into high-impact stuff, the material specifically mentions yoga and Pilates.
Yes, and these are essential because they emphasize the mind-body connection. They're lower impact, but they offer huge benefits by focusing on flexibility, core strength, and this is critical conscious breathing. The mindfulness part, focusing intensely on holding a pose or coordinating your breath with your movement, that's what turns it from just exercise into profound stress relief tool.
Now, for total immersion, outdoor adventure hobbies, where the environment itself is a huge part of the experience.
These activities, hiking, rock climbing, camping, kayaking, they offer this powerful 1-2 punch, a physical challenge combined with a total reset of your perspective.
Because you have to focus.
You have to. When you're concentrating on navigating tricky terrain or managing your risk on a rock face, the small worries of daily life, they just melt away. The sources had that beautiful anecdote about hiking in the Scottish Highlands. It was described as not just a physical challenge, but a combination of that challenge and just breathtaking, unforgettable scenery.
That sensory experience.
Yes, the smell of the pine, the feel of the wind, the sheer scale of the landscape, that's a direct path to mental refreshment that you just can't get in a gym.
I think anyone who's spent real time outdoors gets that. That sense of scale reminds you the world is so much bigger than your inbox.
Precisely. And even a quieter form of outdoor activity like gardening gives you these grounding benefits. Gardening is framed as this rewarding activity with gentle exercise and a direct connection to the life cycle. The sources talked about the magical element of nurturing something, planting a tiny seed and watching it become food or a flower. That process teaches patience, it requires problem solving, and it provides satisfaction over a much longer time horizon.
All right, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about hobbies that sharpen the mind and increase cognitive flexibility. These intellectual and learning hobbies feel more and more important in our knowledge-based world.
Absolutely, and we have to start with reading. The sources position it as like the bedrock of intellectual hobbies.
The classic.
The classic. Reading is so versatile, fiction, nonfiction, biographies. But the core benefit is that it expands your knowledge, improves your vocabulary, and forces your brain to visualize and process information without any external video or audio. It strengthens your focus. It's immersive, accessible, and just profoundly enriching.
And crucially, the material makes a very specific, very strong case for reading as an accelerator for anyone learning English.
Oh, this is one of the most effective methods outside of a classroom. Reading in English, when you do it strategically, is cited as a superior way to improve your skills naturally. It's based on this concept of comprehensible input.
Meaning you choose stuff that's just a little bit hard for you.
Exactly. By picking texts that are just slightly above your current comfort level, you absorb grammar and vocabulary in a meaningful context instead of just memorizing lists of words. The key is to start at the right level, maybe young adult fiction or graded readers, and then gradually work your way up. You let your brain just soak up the patterns through the story.
Beyond books, let's talk about the mind-sharpening benefits of puzzles and games. Things like crosswords, Sudoku, chess.
Yeah, these are highly effective for keeping you cognitively agile. Crosswords, in particular, are highlighted as being excellent for vocabulary and for rapid word recall. Chess and logic puzzles develop high-level strategic planning, working memory, pattern recognition. They force your brain to do complex, multi-step planning, which has a direct translation to better decision-making at work.
And learning a new language itself fits here too.
For sure. Modern tech has made language learning with apps and online courses so accessible. It's turned it from this niche academic thing into a global leisure activity.
And it seems like formal, structured learning has really moved into the leisure space for good.
Mhm.
The sources talk about the explosion of online courses and workshops.
It's the democratization of knowledge in action. People are now actively using their free time to learn really relevant skills that may or may not be related to their day job.
Like coding or graphic design.
Exactly. Learning technical skills like coding, data analysis, or graphic design, or even practical skills like advanced cooking or photography, you can do it all from your kitchen table now. This is learning driven by pure interest, not by a boss telling you to get a certification, and that makes the information stick so much better.
And then we have the wonderfully deep and intellectual world of collecting.
Collecting, whether it's stamps, rare coins, vintage comics, art prints, it's highly structured and intellectual. It uniquely combines deep research into history and rarity with the thrill of the hunt and the organizational challenge of cataloging. But maybe the biggest benefit is the social one. It connects you with these specialized, dedicated communities all over the world.
Which is a perfect transition. Let's use that community element to move into social hobbies activities that are really designed to create those strong connections with other people.
These are so essential because they satisfy our fundamental need for belonging. And let's look at the unexpected evolution of gaming. Video gaming is fundamentally social now.
It's not the stereotype of someone alone in their basement anymore.
Not at all. Online multiplayer games let friends, and often strangers, collaborate and compete and communicate in real time globally. This requires rapid communication, sometimes across language barriers, and dynamic teamwork.
And the physical gaming world has had an equally massive boom.
Absolutely. The board game renaissance is phenomenal. Game nights are hugely popular social events now, with everything from complex strategy games that really challenge your mind to, lighthearted party games that are just about laughing and bonding. They provide that regular, focused, non-digital social time that strengthens friendships.
The sources mention dancing as a kind of triple threat: physical activity, artistic expression, and social interaction. They specifically brought up salsa lessons.
Yeah, dancing, especially partner dancing, is a fantastic hobby. It requires physical activity, memory for the steps, and communication skills. You have to lead or follow, often without using words. Taking a salsa or ballroom class provides a fun, structured, low-pressure way to meet new people. If you've just moved somewhere new, joining a dance class is a super effective way to immediately build a new social anchor.
And that idea of structured socializing leads to the general value of just joining clubs and groups.
Yes, joining a book club, a film society, a dinner club, or a hobby group like a gardening collective, it provides reliable, regular social interaction. It takes the hard work out of making plans because there's a routine and a shared purpose. These communities are so vital for our mental well-being and for expanding our social and intellectual circles.
Finally, let's touch on volunteering and cooking as deeply social hobbies.
Volunteering is a deeply fulfilling way to turn your leisure time into charitable action. It lets you give back, which is a powerful psychological reward in itself, and you develop new skills in a non-work setting, and you meet really compassionate, like-minded people.
And cooking.
And cooking and baking. I mean, they're necessary skills, but they become hobbies when you pursue them creatively. When you experiment with new techniques and cultures, the sources highlight that food hobbies are intrinsically social, because the natural endpoint of all that effort is sharing the delicious results with your friends and family, which fosters connection and community.
Okay, given how much of our lives are spent in front of screens, we have to talk about hobbies that use technology directly. The sources really get into this digital frontier, starting with content creation.
Yeah, content creation is like the highest level of digital engagement. Starting a YouTube channel, launching a podcast, writing a blog, it transforms you from a passive consumer into an active contributor.
It's a legitimate hobby for millions of people now.
It is. It allows you to share specialized knowledge or express your creativity or just document your experiences for a global audience. It requires a lot of different skills: technical editing, writing discipline, consistency.
Which leads right into the more core technical hobbies like coding and programming for fun.
A lot of people learn to code purely for enjoyment in their spare time. They're building apps, creating websites, or designing little games just for the intellectual satisfaction of building something functional from abstract logic. Programming demands this mix of logical creativity and rigorous problem solving. It's an incredibly satisfying, highly structured, creative hobby.
And on the visual side, we have digital art and graphic design.
The accessibility of professional level tools now, tablets, powerful software, it means digital art and graphic design are huge leisure activities. People can create amazing illustrations, 3D models, or photo edits from home. It's a hobby that combines artistic talent with technical mastery of the software.
And video editing, too.
Same thing. Video editing for vlogs, travel videos, short films is a hobby that merges technical sequencing with creative storytelling. And you end up with a polished final product that gives you a great sense of accomplishment.
And we can't forget the hardware enthusiasts.
A fascinating subculture. The hobby of building and customizing your own computers, PC building, is a highly technical and precise thing. It requires a ton of knowledge about components and cooling and optimization. It demands patience and meticulous attention to detail. It's basically turning practical engineering into a pursuit driven by pure performance and aesthetics.
Okay, now let's do a complete pivot, turning away from the screens and focusing inward. On wellness and mindfulness, these are activities that are strategically all about mental and emotional health.
These self-care activities are definitely moving into the realm of structured hobbies because people are realizing how necessary mental bandwidth is. Meditation is the prime example.
Right.
Regular practice is an invaluable tool for reducing stress hormones like cortisol and increasing mindfulness. And while the goal isn't to stop thinking, but rather just to observe your thoughts, that takes discipline. And over time, consistent practice becomes profoundly centering and helps with emotional regulation.
Journaling also makes that transition from just a diary to a more therapeutic hobby.
Journaling for personal reflection is cited as a really powerful therapeutic practice. Whether you use a structured method like bullet journaling for organization, or gratitude journaling for perspective, or just free-form writing to process complex emotions, it's a powerful tool for self-understanding. It's a safe, private space to work through thoughts and clarify your feelings without any external judgment.
The sources also touched on sensory engagement for relaxation, like aromatherapy, and making your own natural products.
This is all about engaging multiple senses to anchor yourself in the present moment. Hobbies like making candles, soaps, or essential oil blends are therapeutic because they involve measuring, blending, and focusing on scent and texture. They promote relaxation, and they also enhance your living environment. It's turning self-care into a creative and productive activity.
And finally, this idea of calming art, which connects back to what we said earlier about repetitive tasks.
Yes. Things like adult coloring books or drawing mandalas are specifically designed to be mindful, low-stakes activities. They're engaging enough to occupy your mind and stop it from spiraling into anxiety, but they're repetitive and low-pressure enough to put you in a calm, meditative state. They offer a simple, accessible way to find some mental stillness without needing to learn a complex new skill.
So we've covered this huge spectrum of activities, but I think the main hurdle for a lot of people is still, how do you choose the right hobby? Especially if you feel overwhelmed by all the options, or maybe you've tried things in the past and they didn't stick. How do you narrow it down?
The sources outline a process that starts with some critical self-reflection. And the first piece of advice is beautifully simple. Think about what you loved to do as a child.
Ah, that's a great starting point.
It is, because your childhood interests often hold the purest clues to what will bring you fulfillment as an adult. They were intrinsically motivated. You chose them purely for joy, not because of pressure about money or status. Reclaiming that spark is often the most direct path to a fulfilling adult hobby.
That's really insightful. Beyond that nostalgia, though, there's the practical need to tailor a hobby to your current personality and your lifestyle.
This is critical if you want it to last.
Yeah.
You have to be honest about your tendencies. Are you an introvert who needs quiet and solitude? Then things like reading, research, or coding are probably a good fit. Or are you an extrovert who gets energized by being around people? Then you should look for group settings, team sports, dance classes, organized clubs.
And your hobby should kind of counteract your job.
Ideally, yes. It should be a strategic counterbalance. If you have a sedentary intellectual job, you probably need an active physical hobby to get your body moving. If your work is physically demanding, a quiet, relaxing intellectual or creative hobby like playing chess or learning a language will give you the mental rest you need.
And we have to talk about the practical side of things, specifically budget and the need for a trial run.
Budget is often the first hurdle,
Yeah.
right? Some hobbies are wonderfully inexpensive. Hiking just requires good shoes. Reading just needs a library card.
Yeah.
Others, like advanced photography or sailing, can require a big upfront investment.
So you need to be realistic.
You do.
Mm-hmm.
And the key practical advice is to use introductory classes or community center trials or online tutorials to date a hobby before you marry it.
I like that.
And crucially, the sources all stress that a hobby has to bring you joy, not more stress. If it starts to feel like a second job, you have to be ready to let it change or even abandon it without feeling guilty.
Okay, now let's get to the massive payoff. The transferable skills and the identity development. What are the key benefits of having a hobby that spill over into your professional life?
The primary benefit, and it can feel counterintuitive, is that it prevents your productivity from declining, which is basically what burnout is.
Right.
Hobbies act as a necessary circuit breaker. By giving your mind focused rest and recharge time, by making it to a completely different kind of thinking, you return to your professional work with renewed focus, a fresh perspective, and more energy. Downtime isn't lost time, it's an essential investment in your future efficiency.
That makes perfect sense. But how does the actual skill transfer work? Can you give a concrete example of a hobby skill translating into a business skill?
Sure. I mean, think about it. Team sports teach collaboration and leadership, okay? But they also teach rapid decision-making under pressure and dynamic communication. Or a creative pursuit, like woodworking. It requires meticulous planning, error correction, patience. That same patience you need to wait for a wood finish to dry is a direct parallel to effective project management. Understanding the scope, accepting setbacks, and staying on track.
So hobbies are like little incubators for resilience and creative thinking.
Exactly. Skills that are often overlooked in formal job training.
The sources also highlight the power of having an identity beyond your job title, which really speaks to self-worth.
This is a profound psychological benefit. It's called identity resilience. Hobbies give you a sense of self-worth that is completely independent of your job or your salary. You are a painter, a marathon runner, a musician. Even if your 9-to-5 is totally unrelated.
That feels so important.
It's vital for your mental health, especially during professional setbacks or times of change. And what's more, the sources noted that hobbies often lead to unexpected opportunities. Sometimes they turn into successful side businesses or even full-time careers, simply because the passion behind it produces excellent work that other people value.
Okay, finally we get to the strategic goldmine we promised. Hobbies as an English learning accelerator. This is all about using your genuine interest to drive language learning way more effectively than just studying.
This is where motivation really comes into play. The best language practice is driven by genuine intrinsic interest, not by a grade or a job requirement. Hobbies give you these amazing opportunities to practice English in natural, engaging, high-frequency situations. When you care deeply about a topic, say vintage camera repair, your brain is highly motivated to get past the language barrier to get the information you want.
So walk us through the specific examples. Why is a hobby better for learning English than, say, just reading a textbook?
Okay, let's start with gaming. Playing video games in English, especially multiplayer games with voice or text chat, it forces you to constantly be exposed to authentic conversational language, current slang, and really fast-paced communication.
It's total immersion.
It is. It massively improves your listening comprehension and vocabulary because the language is tied to an immediate dynamic event. It also lowers what's called the affective filter that anxiety learners feel because your goal is to win the game, not to get your grammar perfect. And reading, as we said, becomes this form of high-frequency comprehensible input. If you're passionate about science fiction, reading sci-fi novels in English gives you hundreds of pages of exposure to complex sentences and specialized vocabulary, all driven by your desire to find out what happens next. You're learning grammar and context, which is so much more efficient than memorizing rules.
And the social side of hobbies forces you to actually produce language, too.
Absolutely vital. Joining international hobby communities, online forums about photography, Discord servers for gaming, Facebook groups about cooking. It requires regular, meaningful reading and writing practice in English. You have to use precise English to ask questions or offer advice or share your passion. This gives your writing practice an immediate, real-world purpose.
And for speaking?
For speaking practice, creating content in English, starting a blog, filming a review of your hobby gear, making tutorial videos. That provides intense, structured speaking and writing practice. And it often leads to global interaction and feedback that just dramatically accelerates your progress. The hobby makes a language a tool, not a subject.
It's also important to remember that leisure isn't defined the same way everywhere. It varies so much across the globe based on culture and resources, and understanding that can help you connect with people from different backgrounds.
Yeah, recognizing that cultural diversity in leisure is key to cross-cultural communication. Hobbies are deeply shaped by geography, climate, history, a society's core values. If you understand why a particular culture values a certain hobby, you understand a deep part of their national identity.
The sources gave some great regional examples. Let's start with Scandinavia, which is so influenced by the natural environment.
Scandinavia is defined by this concept of friluftsliv, which means outdoor life. It's a deeply ingrained cultural value. It's not just going outside, it's a philosophical belief that your spiritual and physical health are restored by connecting with nature.
So their hobbies reflect that.
Completely. Hobbies like cross-country skiing, year-round hiking, berry picking, spending time in remote cabins, they're central to their leisure culture. It reflects their climate and a profound cultural priority on mental rest through being in nature.
And contrast that with some examples from Asia.
Asian examples show this amazing balance between modern tech and deep-rooted traditions. You see the intense cultural relevance of communal PC cafes for competitive gaming in places like South Korea. But at the same time, traditional crafts like calligraphy or bonsai gardening are pursued as serious, disciplined hobbies that emphasize patience, aesthetics, and history. Then you have the Mediterranean examples, which center leisure almost entirely around food and social connection. The tradition of long, multi-generational family meals, cooking together, wine tasting, those are the leisure activities. The activity itself is less important than the social bond it creates.
And Oceania, specifically New Zealand and Australia.
Oh, that's a classic example of leisure defining a national identity. The sports culture is enormous. Rugby, cricket, surfing. They're often more than just hobbies. They're integral parts of the national story and social fabric. It reflects a climate perfect for outdoor team sports and a cultural value placed on physical competition and camaraderie.
So, if we accept that there's no single right way to do leisure, the final challenge is always the practical one, balancing responsibilities. How do you make sure these non-negotiable hobbies actually happen when life gets crazy?
The biggest challenge is finding the time, and the core solution is intentional scheduling. We have to stop treating hobbies as something we'll do only if there's time left over.
You have to make time.
You have to make time. The sources strongly advise you to actively schedule your hobby time like it's a doctor's appointment or a mandatory work meeting. Because when life gets busy, leisure is the first thing we cut, and that leads directly to burnout. Treating it as a priority protects that critical mental space.
But practically, what if someone's schedule just can't fit a dedicated hour-long pottery class every Tuesday?
Then you start small, and you prioritize integration. Even just dedicating 20 or 30 minutes a few times a week is significantly better than waiting for that mythical day when you have 4 free hours. The advice is to integrate hobbies into your existing routines. Practice photography on your commute, listen to a language learning podcast while doing chores, or combine hobbies with family time by getting your kids involved in a craft or an outdoor activity. It's about frequency, not duration.
And the encouragement that it's okay for hobbies to take a backseat sometimes during really demanding periods.
Flexibility is paramount. It is totally normal for your hobbies to pause during intense seasons of life. The key is to be compassionate with yourself. Know that the interruption is temporary, and hold on to the intention to return to the things that bring you joy. Remember, the purpose of a hobby is enjoyment and restoration, not professional-level perfection. If the schedule itself is causing you anxiety, the hobby has failed its primary purpose.
That brings us to our final takeaway. We've covered why hobbies are necessary for resilience. We've detailed the whole spectrum of creative, physical, intellectual, social, digital, and wellness pursuits. And we've mapped out their combined benefits for productivity, identity, and crucially, for learning a language.
And the fundamental insight is still this. Dedicating time to focused, intrinsically motivated activities is an active, strategic investment in your long-term resilience and productivity. If you don't currently have a fulfilling hobby, the material really urges you to start exploring today. Life is just too short to miss out on the activities that define you beyond your duties.
And remember, whether you choose to run a half marathon or just enjoy the quiet focus of watercolor painting, the goal isn't to be the best. It's to enjoy the process, develop new sides of your identity, and make sure you have that essential counterweight to your professional demands.
And that intentional self-investment leads us right to our closing thought. If studies show that hobbies give us vital transferable skills, reduce professional burnout, and are essential to forming an identity that's independent of our careers, then maybe we need to shift how we think about success. Does the greatest, most enduring value of our professional accomplishments actually stem not from the effort we put in at work, but from the resilience, the perspective, and the genuine character we build from the work we choose to do entirely for free?